What's up everybody? Welcome back to the channel. Welcome back to the vlog. Thanks for pressing play. Today, as you can see there behind me, it is a Ram TRX kind of day. So we are going to be adding some power, some efficiency, and best yet, some sound and maybe some cool factor. Yeah, we're doing a cold air intake on the TRX. Let's do it. I'm gonna show you from top to bottom how to install this thing, what it sounds like before and after. Let's do it. All right guys, welcome back to the channel. Like I said, today we are doing a cold air intake install on the Ram TRX. It's been a while coming for this. I had a company reach out to me called Real Truck. You guys have heard of them before. We actually used them for the bed cover on the TRX. We did that about a year ago, a little more than a year ago now at this point. The bed cover is holding up really awesome. I love the Real Truck website because you can literally get any truck accessories that you want, and including the cold air intake for the Ram TRX. That's where it came from. So definitely check out Real Truck. I'll leave the link in the description down below. But what we're doing today is going to be the AFE air intake on this bad boy. And this thing sounds and looks awesome. It's gonna add power, it's all the good stuff. So what I'm gonna do here today is I'm gonna show you guys how to install it, kind of give you my review, show you the differences before and after of some revving and some high speed driving, so you can hear how much more whine you get out of that supercharger. Now what you also get with this air intake is reusable air filters, so I decided to get the oiled air filter option. You can also go with the dry air filter, and in this case, when they get dirty, you pop them out, you clean them, you re-oil them, and you put them back in. So it is a reusable system that also manages to reuse the Ram Air system of the TRX. So this pulls in air right here. There's also some that gets pulled in through here. It reutilizes all of the stock points of air intake. So this is one of the better ones out there on the market. Again, check out the link in the description down below if you are interested in grabbing one of these for your TRX. But let's start with getting that hood popped and getting the stock unit taken out. All right, so first step is to remove the TRX plastic facade here. So all you gotta do for that is just grab on each side, yank up, and then it will kind of hinge up in the back, yank out, that's it. So with that removed, we can start into the actual disassembly of the air intake. What we're gonna do next is we're gonna go through and pop off all of the plastic clips here from factory. So there's a bunch of them. We need to ultimately take this plastic piece off. There are 16 of these things, so go ahead and pop these out, and then we'll be able to remove this plastic part. With all the clips removed, we're gonna go ahead and remove this plastic. Now, what we gotta kind of do is bend it a little bit in the middle because there are some parts that go underneath the fenders. So you wanna just kind of pull up on it. Yeah, like that. There you go, and there you go. Now we're looking at the real intake here, which means we're gonna start removing bolts. Right here we have, I think, a 10 millimeter. We'll take off the intake tube. We'll get basically most of this stuff off. It's all pretty much common sense. So once we get these 10 millimeter bolts out, we don't have to worry about these ones up here. These ones are 8 millimeter, but we don't have to worry about those because what we're gonna do is actually take out the entire intake all in one piece. So we're gonna take off this worm clamp right here, which I believe is a 7 or 8 millimeter head, but it can also be taken off with a flathead screwdriver as well. Once we take that off, this whole box will come out with this bar removed. So kind of the strut tower bar here. We're gonna take these two bolts out, which one is a 10 and one is a 12, I believe. But in my case, I have the Mighty Mouse oil catch can, so I'm gonna have to also drop that off of the bar before we take it out. But once we take out these two bolts on this side and the same two on the driver's side, we can actually take out the bar and the air box all in one part. But we're also gonna have to unbolt this 10 millimeter here, which is extra support. Like I said, the outside screw here is a 10 millimeter. So bolt size correction, the second one in here, right here, is actually a 13, not a 12. And then the worm clamp here is gonna be a 5/16 or like an 8 millimeter. On the passenger side, we have this extra bar right here that has to come off at the actual strut bar. So that's a 10 millimeter nut. We'll go ahead and zip that off. Now, like I said, with mine, I do have the Mighty Mouse catch can here, so that's got to come off, and then we can just kind of lay that down in the engine bay for now. And back over on the driver's side, we have the sensor MAF sensor, it looks like, on the air box. We have to unplug that. On the driver's side, this bar, this extra bar does exist. We'll unbolt it from up here. It looks like a 10 millimeter. So with everything else out, guys, we should be able to go ahead and just lift this from the bar. Lift it, we gotta get the intake tube off. And then it should just lift right up. All right, so the next step is we have to cut the tube that runs from the intake tube to the actual solenoid here on the truck. So right here, we'll just go ahead and cut through those 3 ribs, and that will allow us to basically pull this tube off. Now we're gonna be replacing this with a tube from the AFE kit. With the tube off and cut, which we can actually see right there, it's off of the factory solenoid. The next step is going to be to remove the stock worm clamp on the throttle body here, and then this entire intake tube should come off. So with that clamp loose, we'll go ahead and remove the stock tube. Now we are going to pull off the sensor here in a second. Basically, it's just going to be kind of a quarter turn situation. And get that out and put that in the new intake tube. The stock sensor here, it's relatively easy to take out. You just got to kind of pull up on a plastic part and you can quarter turn it and just pop it out of the rubber grommet. So this is the kind of unboxing part of this whole thing, guys. Like I said, got the oiled air filters here, so get 2 of them. We're gonna have to unpackage all this stuff, of course, but we'll start with the easy stuff. These are gonna be the couplers going from the throttle body to the intake tubes. You got a couple of those because there's actually gonna be 2 tubes coming off now instead of just 1, because we got 2 filters. So we are totally unboxed. What we have here is obviously the 2 air filters down here, the air filter box, which is actually pretty much completely constructed already, which is kind of funny. It's going to make this a lot easier. We've got the intake tubes over here, and then the main tube off the throttle body right on the side here, and then the T-bolt clamps, which is what makes this particular kit special. The T-bolt clamps will hold a little bit more pressure on all these parts, so vibrations and off-roading and stuff won't force the intake tubes to come apart from the throttle body. So this stuff should go together pretty easily. We're going to start with the main pipe right here and put that on the throttle body. The silicone coupler in place, it's going to go on the throttle body, and the end that you want to go on the throttle body has 2 bumps like this. This other end here is going to go onto the actual pipe itself. So this will go onto the throttle body, and those 2 bumps will go in between 2 bumps on the throttle body itself, so you can't really misplace it. After you get in place, we'll go ahead and use a 7/16 socket to tighten down the T-bolt clamp. These provide a good bit of pressure, so you don't have to go crazy with it, but you do want them tight. The next step is going to be to take the first hose here, which you can see has the indent for the other side of that silicone coupler, and we're going to slide that in place and put a T-bolt clamp on there as well. So T-bolt clamp on, and then just make sure that little tongue part of the silicone coupler fits right into the groove on the first intake pipe. This is what I'm talking about. You can see the tongue kind of fits into the intake tube, and then the 2 pieces over here fit onto the throttle body. Now what we noticed after doing this, it was a little easier for filming purposes, but you could actually put that silicone coupler onto the tube before you put anything else onto the throttle body. So maybe do the coupler onto the tube first. So the next step, guys, is going to be to use the included hose here to replace the one that we cut off of the factory one. Now, this is going to go on the intake tube and then back onto that same solenoid that we cut it off of. Right there is the nipple that it will go onto for the intake tube, and then back there is where the solenoid is at. So you can just take that tube and basically push it into place, and it is good to go. There's no clamps or anything you have to mess with because it's a pretty tight fit, so it's pretty much airtight once you get it pushed on. And here it is. So in place, just pushed on there and then pushed on at the solenoid, and we are good to go. In order to finish this thing up, we got to actually take apart part of the stock air intake, and it's these screws, 5/16. That's what size screws these are. We got to take all these off so this top cover will come off, so we can unbolt the strut tower cover bar thing here. So once that comes off, we can then transfer that from the stock intake over to the aftermarket air intake. Now these bolts down here are a T30 Torx head bit, so we're just going to zip those out and then move them over to the new box. Okay, so transferring them over to the new intake, and This one is only going to accept 2 screws, so you took out 4 and you're only replacing 2. Now these are threaded into the actual air intake box, but they will go through that strut bar first. Next step, after we get the bar bolted on, is we're going to take these little rubber stoppers that come in there in the packaging, and we're going to pop these in up underneath. So these will basically be what rides on top of the radiator, and yeah, we'll keep the box from basically scratching or making any kind of noise. You got to push them in from the bottom, and as you can see, not super easy. Got to kind of lube them up, shove them in there. And just like that, guys, all 4 of them are in place. Now, like I said, the majority of this is going to be seen on the bottom. You can see them right there. Those are going to ride, like I said, on top of the radiator to make sure things don't vibrate. So next step is these little areas here are getting the grommet and the silver part that goes through the grommet pushed through the big hole in the end of the intake. We're going to take one of the air intake tubes with the hole here. We're going to use the supplied 1-inch rubber grommet and pop it into place. This is for the MAF or mass airflow sensor here. Once that's in place, we're then going to use the next part, which is the piece that the sensor will literally snap into. And it says in the manual to make sure that the arrow on this is following the direction of the air. So the air would be going this way. So basically we're just putting it in the same exact position that the manual shows it. Next step is to transfer the temperature sensor over to the tube. So it is actually referred to in the manual as a temperature sensor. You'll just turn it until you hear it clip. We're going to go ahead and put the silicone couplers on both ends of the pipe. So there's one here and then there's another end over there. Now the manual actually says to do this before you put the pipe in, but again, for installation purposes, or video installation purposes, I should say, it was a little easier to do it this way. So you'll just put that silicone coupler on with a T-bolt clamp on both sides, and then we're on to the next step. Once we have the air box in, we'll go ahead and tighten down the 10mm nuts or bolts here that hold to the radiator crash bar area. Next step is going to be to install the air filters on both sides. So AFE basically says that once you push the air filter in, it will kind of snap into place and it will allow you to then put the side intake tubes on. So it doesn't matter which one on which side, it should just kind of snap in, and you'll see the filter itself has some ridges here on the ends. That's what they're talking about. That will snap into the actual housing. So these do kind of snap into place. It's definitely convenient. The next part would be the intake tube for the driver's side here. So the instructions say to get a little bit more room, they want you to remove the fuse box cover. So I'm going to pop that out of there so there's a little bit more room to work with. So what you're trying to do at this point is to seat the lower intake tube as well as the filter at the same time. Then you can go ahead and put your T-bolt clamps on, because those do come apart. Once you take it apart, you take off that nut, and once the nut is fully off, you can actually pull the clamp completely apart and then just put it around that rubber or silicone coupler and then tighten it back down. With all of the connections made, the only thing really left to do is put the big plastic part back on top of all of this. All right, guys, so we are done. We got everything installed, and you can see this is the final product. Now, these screws here, these specialty AFE screws, it says that you have to drill out that area. I did not have to drill anything out, and from all the other instructions I saw, they didn't have to either. So I think this is kind of just a redundant step on AFE's part, just in case, since there are some variances through trucks. But yeah, that's it. The install is not too bad. It took a little bit, maybe 3 hours, but that's just mostly filming. Probably an hour and a half to 2 hours at most to do this if you're not filming like I am. So yeah, T-bolt clamps are what really makes this thing. The air filters, like I said, being reusable are definitely nice. And I like the fact that you get to retain the TRX eating the Raptor, or the T-Rex eating the Raptor. I think that's pretty cool. So we're gonna pop in the rest of these clips, and then we are all set. All right, guys, so that is going to do it for today's video. Hopefully you liked the install of the AFE cold air intake. Like I said, if you want to check it out for yourself, look at the link in the description down below. It's from Real Truck. The price is always pretty much the best you're going to find online, and they ship insanely fast. I got this thing in like 2 days. So anyway, guys, I'm going to take this truck out. I haven't actually tested it yet. I'm going to take it out and see how I feel about it. I'm going to get you guys some more sound clips, but for the most part, that's the video. If you liked what you saw, smash that thumbs up button. And if you haven't subscribed yet, please do. I got a bunch of TRX content coming you're not going to want to miss. And as always, guys, I will catch you in the next upload. All right, guys, so we're going to do a little pull here of the stock intake so you can hear what it sounds like. All right, so that's before the intake. And we're gonna get some sound clips from the outside as well here, guys, because yeah, once we do this, it's all gonna be a little bit different. So it's obviously a little later at night, but I'm gonna try to give you a sound clip from the outside. We're on the same distance, we're in the same exact atmosphere. You can definitely hear that supercharger whine a little bit more. All right, we'll get you a clip from the inside now. Here we go. It's definitely louder. The engine in general sounds about the same, but the supercharger's louder and the exhaust sounds like it might be a hair louder too. So overall, all good things. Even at real low RPM, this thing's super pronounced now. So I would definitely give it a big thumbs up. Again, check out that link in the description down below if you're interested. But yeah, listen to this. It's pretty cool. That's the low speed sing of the supercharger.